Hello everyone and welcome to EduTap. You all are watching this special series on ESIC Deputy Director exam where we are going to discuss 10 important MCQs that can be expected to be seen in the recruitment test belonging to the subject of freedom movement and Indian Union. This subject is a very important subject. We have been going on with this particular series where I have taken with you 16 such sessions where I have discussed important MCQs related to this particular subject, and in this session again we are going to discuss 10 more important MCQs. So in total we have discussed more than 150 MCQs related to this particular subject, and there is a very good chance that all the questions that we have discussed from that basket of questions we can expect to see a number of questions in the exam of ESIC Deputy Director as well, right? So let us hope that all the efforts that we are doing in this particular series, they pay off when we go to attempt the exam. Now let us start this session without any particular delay. Question number 1 is in front of you right now. With reference to the Indian history, the members of the Constituent Assembly from the provinces were elected in what manner? We have been given 4 options, and this question is related to the selection of the Constituent Assembly members, right? So all the members of the Constituent Assembly, we know that they were either indirectly elected or they were nominated by the princely states, because in the British India we know that there was a British India which was being ruled by governors under provinces, and then there were princely states also which were part of the British India, and in these princely states there was no popular government, no democratic government. There was a monarchical ruler or a hereditary ruler of that princely state. Of all these princely states, the members who were elected and sent to the Constituent Assembly, they were nominated by the rulers, nominated by the princes, right? So the Maharaja of Patiala or the King of Patiala, he sent his own representative. The Nizam of Hyderabad, he sent his own representative. So the representatives from the princely states, they were nominated by the rulers. But what about the provinces? In the provinces, the members who were elected to be sent to the Constituent Assembly, they were elected by the members of the legislative assemblies of those provinces. So for example, in the Bombay province, the members of the Bombay Legislative Assembly, they voted and they elected a particular member to be sent to the Constituent Assembly. That is why we say that all these members of the Constituent Assembly, they were indirectly elected, because they were not directly elected by the people. The people directly elected the members of legislative assemblies, and these members of legislative assemblies then in turn elected the members of the Constituent Assembly. Okay, so correct answer in this question will be option number C. They were elected by the provincial legislative assemblies. They were not directly elected by the people of those provinces. No, there was no direct election of members of Constituent Assembly. No, they were not nominated by INC or the Muslim League. No political parties were nominating. Then they were not selected by the government for their expertise in constitutional matters. Not at all. The British government did not select any of the members in the Constituent Assembly. Okay, we also must remember that all these members of Provincial Legislative Assembly, they voted or they elected the member of their own community to be sent to the Constituent Assembly, because at that time the separate electorates, they were in play. So all the Hindu members of the legislative assemblies, they voted for the Hindu members to be sent to Constituent Assembly. The Sikh members, they voted for Sikh representatives. The Muslim members, they voted for the Muslim representatives, and that is why different communities, they voted for their own representatives to be sent to the Constituent Assembly. Done. Next up, question number 2 is in front of you now. This question is related to the Tebhaga movement. Tebhaga peasant movement in Bengal was famous. It was one of the last movements before India attained independence in the years of 1946 to 47. This movement was quite active in the region of Bengal, right? So what was the demand of the Tebhaga peasant movement? Option A, the reduction of the share of landlords from 1/2 to the of the crop to 1/3. Option B, the grant of ownership of land to peasants as they were the actual cultivators of the land. Option C, the uprooting of zamindari system and the end of serfdom. And option D, writing off of all peasant debts. Now, Tebhaga movement, this movement, the name of this movement, Tebhaga, basically means 3 parts. At that time, extraordinary revenue was being extracted from the peasants of the Bengal region. The share of crop was about 1/2. So whatever output was coming out of the farms, 1/2 of that output had to go to the landlords or zamindars, and only 1/2 remained with the cultivators, right? So cultivators, what they in the Tebaga movement, they demanded and they agitated that the share of the zamindars should not be one half, it should be one third of the total produce. Therefore we should be awarded with at least two thirds of the produce that we are cultivating, and one third should be given to the zamindars. And this movement, it was led by various leaders, especially communist leaders of the Bengal region. And this movement also turned violent in many places. In many places the zamindars, they were attacked, their properties were attacked, many zamindars were killed also, and in return many peasants were also killed in retaliation by police forces, right? So this movement was not at all a peaceful movement, it was a violent movement. And in the end, the demand of the peasants that the share of the zamindar should be reduced to one third, it was accepted by the zamindars. Okay, so the correct answer here is option A, reduction of the share of landlords from one half of the crop to one third. Next up is question number 3. Question number 3 is about Quit India movement, one of the very popular movements which was launched in 1942. It was launched in response to what? The Quit India movement, it was launched in response to what? Option A, Cabinet Mission Plan. Option B, Cripps proposals. Option C, Simon Commission report. And option D, Wavell Plan. Now, if you know the entire chronology of the events, you will obviously know the answer of this particular question. It is not a difficult question, but if you do not know the exact answer for this question, but if you are clear about the timeline of certain events, you can guess the answer here as well. Because Quit India movement, this is a very famous movement. You know that this started in 1942. Now the Simon Commission came way earlier. The Simon Commission came into India in 1928. Sorry, in 1928. And in 1928 the Simon Commission, it also came out with its own report. This report was published in 1930. So it happened way before Quit India movement, approximately 10 years, 12 years before the start of Quit India movement. So Simon Commission report will not be the cause for the launch of Quit India movement. Then Cabinet Mission Plan. Cabinet Mission Plan was the final plan which was sent by the British government to India, and this plan delineated the manner in which the Constituent Assembly will be elected, the manner in which the India will be granted independence, and it happened. The final report of the Cabinet Mission Plan, it came out in 1946 after the Quit India movement. Okay. Now the remaining options are Cripps proposals and Wavell Plan. Out of these two, Wavell Plan came later when the Cripps proposals, it failed, right? So correct answer here is Cripps proposal. This proposal was sent in 1940 in India, and this proposal contained various proposals like India would be given dominion status after the First World War. If Indian leaders supported the British war effort, India will be granted more autonomy, more Indians will be included in the Viceroy's Council, more Indians will be elected to the legislative assemblies and legislative councils. Many such vague promises were made by the Britishers in the Cripps proposals, which were not at all accepted by the Indian National Congress or the Muslim League, right? That is why Indian National Congress or Mahatma Gandhi ji started with the Quit India movement, because they were now not at all satisfied with the proposals of Cripps. Okay, that's why the correct answer here is option B, Cripps proposals. Next up is question number 4. Question number 4 is about the Radcliffe Committee. The Radcliffe Committee in India was appointed to: option A, solve the problems of minorities in India. Option B, give effect to the Independence Bill, which was passed in 1947. Option C, delimit boundaries between India and Pakistan. And option D, inquire into riots in East Bengal governments in the provinces being divided. So basically the Radcliffe Committee was set up during the times of independence to delimit the boundaries between India and Pakistan on both eastern and western sides. So between India and western Pakistan, the borders between Punjab, Rajasthan, Gujarat regions and Kashmir region, and also eastern Pakistan when it was being divided, the boundaries between Assam and Bengal and Bangladesh, all these boundaries, they were delimited by the Radcliffe Commission. That is why we know these boundaries as Radcliffe Line or Radcliffe boundary, right? You will also hear the term Radcliffe Award, that is the award or the decision or the verdict which was given by the Radcliffe Committee, that this will be the boundary separating India and Pakistan. So correct answer here is option number C, boundaries delimitation between India and Pakistan. It happened on the recommendations of the Radcliffe Committee, right? Question number 5. Now that we are halfway through all these questions, question number 5 is in front of you. What was or were the objectives of Queen Victoria's proclamation in 1858? Queen Victoria's proclamation, it came in the aftermath of 1857 revolution. This is a very important event. You have to remember 1857 mutiny, we call it, or the first war of Indian independence, or the first struggle for independence, that is in 1857 this happened. After the 1857, the Britishers, they realized that they had to bring some changes. They had to come up with some changes in the way they administer India, in order to remove, or in order to avoid any possibility of such kinds of events, 1857 kinds of events in the future. So what changes were made? First of all, the Queen's Proclamation was issued in 1858. What were the objectives of the Queen's Proclamations? Number one, to disclaim any intention to annex Indian states. In the Queen's Proclamation, the monarch or the Queen says that we do not have any intention to annex any more Indian states. We know that before 1857, many of the states, they were being annexed by Dalhousie on the pretext of doctrine of lapse or subsidiary alliance, or the misbehavior or misgovernance in princely states. On the pretext of misgovernance, Dalhousie used to confiscate the princely states and establish the British sovereignty or suzerainty over there, right? So Indians, they were very much apprehensive that Britishers, what they want to do is they want to snatch away our own princely states, our own kingdoms. And to quell this fear, the Queen says that we do not have any intention, we disclaim any intention to annex Indian states. We will not annex any more Indian states. If they accept the sovereignty of the British crown, they would be allowed to manage their own affairs without any British interference. Okay. Option number two, to place the Indian administration under the British crown. Yes, before this particular proclamation, the entire administration of India was in the hands of East India Company. Right, we know that East India Company was established in 1600s in order to manage the trade activities, first of all, in India. Then it graduated or evolved into an administering body, into a governing body, and started ruling over the entire country. In 1858, actually, the Queen's Proclamation says that now the direct administration of entire country, India, would be under the British Crown, and the Governor General would now be known as Viceroy, because he or she would be acting on behalf of the British Crown. Right. Option number three says to regulate East India Company's trade with India. No, this was not an intention of Queen Victoria's proclamation, because with this proclamation, the East India Company was abolished. East India Company's all administering activities, they were abolished with this particular act. Right. So there was no East India Company now ruling over India, and there was no effort to regulate the company's trade with India. It was now trading in its own private capacity, not as the ruler of our own country. Okay. So correct answer for this question will be option number A. Only the first and second statements are correct. The Queen proclaimed that we do not want to annex any more Indian territories. All Indian rulers, princely states, they need not be fearful of Britishers. And option number two, that the British Crown now would be directly administering the Indian affairs, the Indian country, through the Viceroy. Okay. Next up is question number 6. Question number 6 is about the partition of Bengal. It happened in 1905 by Lord Curzon. It was a very aggravating event. It mobilized Indian masses throughout the country, and Swadeshi movement was started in order to protest against the division of Bengal. But this partition of Bengal lasted until when? This partition of Bengal lasted until what time? Option A, the First World War, when Indian troops were needed by the British and the partition was ended. The First World War, it started in 1914. It lasted till 1918. Did British annulled the partition of Bengal? They avoided, or they removed the partition of Bengal in order to appease the Indian troops so that they would fight for British in the First World War. This is not correct. Britishers did not do that. Option B, King George V abrogated the Curzon's Act at the Royal Darbar in Delhi in 1911. Yes, this is the correct answer. In 1911, the capital of British India, it was transferred from Kolkata or Calcutta at that time to New Delhi, right? And a Royal Darbar was held in New Delhi. And in this Royal Darbar, King George V himself, he came to India, and in his honor this Darbar was held, and in this Darbar only he annulled the Curzon's Act. And this was a symbol of appeasement towards Indian masses, that yes, the king is very benevolent, king is very good, and therefore he has accepted your demand to annul the partition of Bengal. Okay, so in 1911 the partition of Bengal was annulled, but whatever objectives the Britishers had in their mind, for which they executed this partition of Bengal, all those objectives, they were met by the Britishers. All those objectives, they were achieved. Option number C, Gandhiji launched civil disobedience movement. No, this happened in 1930. And the partition of India happened in 1947, and then East Pakistan was formed, but it was not the partition of Bengal. This East Pakistan was formed by the Radcliffe Committee. You remember the Radcliffe Commission? It delineated the boundaries between India and Pakistan. So this happened because of the recommendations of the Radcliffe Committee. Whatever boundary they said, it was designated as the East Pakistan. But in 1911, the partition of Bengal was annulled by King George V. Right? Correct answer here is option number B. Next is question 7. Question number 7 is about very important session of Indian National Congress, 1929 session of the INC, and it is of significance in the history of freedom movement of India because option A, attainment of self-government was declared as the objective of the Congress. Self-government. Self-government does not mean independence. Self-government only means that under the Britishers, Indians will be allowed to form their own government. They will be allowed to hold their own elections. They will be allowed to elect their own leaders, and those leaders will make a responsible government, the government which would be answerable to the parliament. Next option, option number B, attainment of Purna Swaraj. Complete independence was adopted as the goal of the Congress. Complete independence, that is the Britishers, they have to leave out of India. We do not want anything to do with the Britishers. This was the option number B. Option number C says non-cooperation movement was launched, and option D, decision to participate in the Round Table Conference in London was taken. No, this is not correct. Round Table non-cooperation movement was also launched in 1920, right? Not in 1929 session. And in 1929 session, this session happened in Lahore, right? And in this session, Jawaharlal Nehru, he proclaimed this particular resolution that we want Purna Swaraj. We do not want anything else. We want Britishers to leave India, and India wants nothing to do with the Britishers. That is why correct answer here is option number B. And in 1929 session, we adopted this particular Purna Swaraj resolution, and this is one of the reasons that we also celebrate, or we decided that we will make 26th January 1950 as the day of the commencement of the Constitution, because this was the day when this particular resolution of Purna Swaraj was adopted by Indian National Congress. Okay. Next up is question number 8. The Government of India Act of 1919 clearly defined. The Government of India Act of 1919, also known as the Montagu-Chelmsford reforms. Okay. Option A, the separation of power between the judiciary and the legislature. Option B, the jurisdiction of the central and provincial governments. Option C, the powers of the Secretary of State of India and the Viceroy. And option D, none of the above. The 1919 Act very clearly defined the jurisdiction of the central and provincial governments, because this act, it was an effort to introduce diarchy in the provinces. Right, certain subjects, they were delegated to the provinces, and the provincial governments had full power to make any decision on those particular subjects. But in the governments also, in the provincial governments also, certain subjects, they were reserved for the governor, and certain subjects, they were open for the ministers to make laws upon. Right, correct answer is option number B. The jurisdiction of the central Indian government under the Viceroy and the provincial governments under the provincial governors, they were clearly defined. Okay. Next up is question number 9. Which of the following movements has contributed to a split in the Indian National Congress, resulting in the emergence of moderates and extremists? The two factions of Congress, moderates and extremists, they emerged in response to which particular movement? Option A, Swadeshi movement. Swadeshi movement started in 1905. Quit India movement in 1942. Non-cooperation movement in 1920. And civil disobedience in 1930. Now we know that this emergence of moderates and extremists, this happened before Gandhiji came into India, and there is only one movement which happened before Gandhiji came into India, and that is our Swadeshi movement, right? So even before Gandhiji came into India, the leaders of Congress, they were divided into two factions, the moderates and the extremists. And when the partition of Bengal happened, the Congress decided that we have to protest in certain way. The extremist leaders, they wanted demonstrations, they wanted strikes, they wanted boycott, they wanted the use of Swadeshi or nationalist goods, while the moderates, what they wanted was peaceful agitation. They wanted to write appeals or to concessions to the British government in order to request them to annul the partition of Bengal. They wanted only constitutional means to be adopted for the opposition to the partition of Bengal, while the extremists, they wanted non-constitutional means also. Okay, so correct answer here is option A, Swadeshi movement, and that is why in 1907, in the Surat session of Congress, it happened in Surat, the Congress was split into two factions. One was the moderate faction, one was the extremist factions. Although both the factions, they again reunited in 1916 of Lucknow session. 1916 Lucknow session. they again reunited, right? So this is known as Surat split, and this is known as Lucknow, where again they both factions of the Congress, they came under one umbrella. Okay, now friends, the last question of the day, and this is about the Satya Shodhak Samaj, a very important reformatory organization. This organization organized a movement for upliftment of tribals in Bihar, or temple entry movement in Gujarat, so that the so-called lower castes, they would be allowed entry into Hindu temples. Option C, anti-caste movement in Maharashtra, and option D, a peasant movement in Punjab. The Satya Shodhak Samaj, it was established by Jyotiba Phule in order to uplift the conditions of lower castes in the state of Maharashtra. So it was an anti-caste movement in the state of Maharashtra, and this particular organization, it worked for the education and for the welfare of the lower caste people. It also campaigned that the caste should not be followed, the caste system should be rejected by the Indian masses, especially the people in Maharashtra, and that is why the correct answer here is option number C, right? So this is all in today's session, my friends. We have discussed 10 important MCQs related to the subject of Indian freedom struggle and Indian Union. And if you like this video, please do like this video, and also subscribe to our YouTube channel. And if you want to join the Telegram channel, the link is available in the description box given below. Here in this Telegram channel, you will find the PDFs of all the sessions that we take on our YouTube absolutely free of cost, right? So this is all for today's session. Keep on learning, keep on growing. Jai Hind and Jai Bharat.